Hi, welcome back to Art and Soul. I'm really glad you could join me again today. I feel like it is just really a blessing for me to be able to come into your home every week with these painting shows, and hopefully they're being a help to you and an inspiration, and maybe you're picking up a paintbrush yourself and painting along with me, and that's cool. Um, we started a painting last week, and I'll just kind of quickly go through what we did. We started out with one of these canvas boards that I don't normally paint on these, but um, I received a little package of these, and they're great to do studies with. And so we started on this last week. Flip maybe to the other camera here, and I'll go through and show you what we've done. Started out with just this nice little sky um, up here, and with a little bit of a mountain range and some foothills that are here, and then started to developing in a little bit more of this middle ground and getting ready to do the foreground. And with this little river that's running through this little scene. So everything is dry from last week. I work with oil paints. If you've been watching the show, know. This can be done, same thing can be done with acrylics as well, but it's just my preference to work with the oils. If we can switch over to the palette here, I'll go through the colors really quickly with you. I have, this is a Payne's Gray, alizarin crimson, a little dioxazine purple, cobalt blue, our titanium white, sap green, a cad yellow white, and then we have this other one over here, which it's more of a buttercup, a lot of different names for it, but I'm not sure which all those we will use, but they're on the palette. And so what we're going to do now, we've got like I said, kind of a nice little background started here. I want to take and develop out a little bit more in the clouds really quickly. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a little 1/2-inch brush. I'm going to grab just some straight titanium white. And I'm not going to do a whole lot more with this sky. I just want to take and just make a few of these clouds a little bit more predominant. And I've got very little paint on my brush, and I'm doing this scrubbing motion. And if you've been watching the show, this is the way that I developed these clouds. And I started doing this quite a while ago, and I've been so happy with the results. And I believe the clouds are really they look a little more realistic than doing them any other way. And I'm not killing, if you can see there, I'm not killing all of that color that we had originally, because that underpainting is very important in developing this to get the depth that we're looking for. And I'm just going to bring that right down to that top of that mountain, and maybe just a little bit more over here, and we'll just call that sky good. The scrubbing motion with having very little paint on the brush enables you to make these really beautiful wispy little clouds. So with that, we'll call that sky good, and we'll move on. So now, I'm pretty happy, I think, with these foothills. We could develop them a little bit further if we wanted to, but with what we're going to be doing here with the next layer, I think they're going to be just fine the way they are. So before I get too far down the road, I want to take and put in a little bit more color here into our water, develop that so that then we can bring our hills down into it. So what I'm going to do with that is we've got kind of this lavenderish color that I put down kind of as just a kind of a guideline as to where we were doing that river at. And I like that because it actually picks up a lot of the lavenders that are in the sky, in these foothills. And so, and I think that that's important to keep in mind, that we want to have continuity throughout the painting. So if you've got color that you're putting into one area, you need to incorporate that into other areas so that there's continuity between the whole painting. So I'm just going to grab some of the cobalt blue and a little bit of my titanium white. So we've got kind of a nice powder blue color, and I'm going to grab just a touch of the dioxazine purple to add to that. And see, I got a little more purpley than what I wanted, so come back in, grab some white, some of the cobalt blue, just to get that kind of that color that I'm wanting. And don't be afraid to, you know, see, like I try it and it's still way too purple. So I think what I'm going to do is, rather than trying to get that light enough, I'm just going to grab another cobalt blue, and I've still got the lavender purple on my brush, so it gives me a nice, yeah, that's much better. And my director always thinks that it's funny when I use the word periwinkle, but that's the color that we're after here, is kind of that nice little periwinkle. It catches some of the sky color, and I'm just taking and blocking in a little bit farther, a little bit more of that little stream that's going to be going through there. I think we'll probably end up putting in maybe a couple of little waterfalls or parts of the stream where the water might be crusting over the rocks. But that'll give us a nice little start there to that. Now, I've got, if you notice, I didn't clean my brush. I've still got all of those colors still on my brush, and what I'm doing now is I grabbed some titanium white, and I'm just taking now, just trying to cover up the canvas down here in this foreground. So it's much lighter, with more towards the white, but there's still all of those other colors that are mixing on the canvas as I'm doing this, because there's still paint in the brush. And I do a lot of this where I don't clean my brush. I may wipe out the excess, but again, it just kind of makes, I think, a continuity much more so in the painting. So there we've got kind of a nice little development more of the water. Now I want to take, before I go too much farther, I want to take and start developing out these hills a little bit more in that middle ground. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do it, a lot of different brushes to do it with. I'm using this little 1/2-inch brush. It's got just a real, it's not a bristle brush. This is one of the fine hair brushes, and it's really nice for doing this type of thing. So I'm grabbing some of my sap green and grabbing some of my cad yellow, and I don't want to get this too light too soon. We talked about this a little bit last week. Yeah, that's okay there. It's actually a little brighter than what I want, so just grab some more of the sap green, and I'm just taking and using downward motions here, just to kind of give the lay of the land coming down off of that ridge. And because I had all of those different colors mixed on my brush, I'm getting a variation of color on the that's coming out onto the canvas, which is good, because we don't want everything to be the same color. I see that all the time with my students, is that they, the grass, they say, oh, it's green. Well, and they make all of the grass totally green. Well, that's not the case. If you look at it, the way the light hits, it's going to be all sorts of different hues of green. So keep that in mind as you're doing this, because we've got the sunlight hitting on this little ridge, so we want to make sure that we have that indicated with the differences in the variation of light. Now, right along the edge here, we've got where you can't see it. It's way back in the distance, but I want to have a little bit of an indication of that tree line that's back there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a little bit of the paint, and I'm just going to take and go right along that ridge line and pull that up. And by pulling it up like that, it gives just the illusion of some distant trees that are back there. Now I want to do the same thing basically over here, and this time what I'm doing is, because this is going to be more of a shadowed side, I'm going to grab just a little bit of my alizarin crimson and mix that with that sap green. So it's giving us it's a kind of an army green, for a lack of a technical term there. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. Just bringing that down that ridge line. And with this being on the shadowed side of the hill, it's going to be a little darker. You're not going to see as much of the detail on it, and so that's the reason why the switch up of color. Now, what I'm going to do though is, because I've got that incorporated that in on that side of the painting, I want to take and bring that in. I'll mix up just a tad more. I want to do the same thing, bring in just a little bit, not much, but I want to bring in some of that color over here on the other side, where there might be some shadowed sides in the tree line back there. And if you notice, I'm doing all sorts of different movements with my brush, some of them straight like this, some I'm doing upwards, and what that does is it just gives the variation, and it looks like there's a difference going on with the terrain back there and with the trees that might be back there. So that's pretty good there. Kind of give that just a little bit of a blending, and maybe just a hair bit of that lighter color, a few spots over on this ridge here. So what we've done is we've got this side lighter than this side, because this is going to be a lit side versus the darker side, which we started that last week because of the light that we have hitting on the left side of the mountain there. So now we'll take and start developing this now towards this foreground. What I want to do is I want to bring in a couple of nice big tall trees, and that's very simple to do, and people get really worried and stressed over these big trees, and they're very, very simple to do. You can do it with a multitude of different brushes. Because I'm doing on a smaller scale here, smaller painting, I'm just going to use this same 1/2-inch brush, and it comes down to a nice chisel edge there. And I'm going to bring in just some nice trees that would be here in this background, and some of these are closer to the foreground, but maybe this one goes completely off the top of the canvas. He's a big one that stands right there in the middle of the forest, right along the stream. And so these are, I basically just put the trunks in, and then the limbs themselves, we're going to do some fir trees on this one. So I'm just taking the 1/2-inch brush and just using just the corner. I'm going to start going back and forth across here. And as I do that, I'm grab a little bit more paint. So if I I'm just going to reload the brush. And by doing this, you can put in some nice fir trees. I'm just going to get a little darker as I'm coming down here, back and forth, back and forth. And maybe what we'll do is we'll bring those all the way down to the ground. We could do them where there'd be more of a trunk showing, but I think we'll just go with these all the way down to the ground. So now obviously, because those other trees are back there, you're not going to see every one of these limbs. So we just want to put this in so that it gives the impression that those trees are there, and the eye is going to automatically pick up on that they are there. And so just by going back and forth, we can really quickly and easily put in a nice little stand of trees that are right here on our hillside. And I'll take and we'll do some on the other side as well, and I'll show you the difference that we'll try a different brush and show you how that is done with a fan brush. A lot of people are afraid to try different brushes, and I always encourage you to do that, because you'll find that there's certain brushes that you start getting where you really like the feel of, you know what they can do, and that's the reason why these canvas boards like this one I'm using here are fun, because you can practice on these canvas boards without spending a lot of money on buying nice hangable canvases. So we've got a nice little stand of trees there. So now I'll quickly grab the fan brush, and I've got a number of fan brushes that I could use, but we'll just use this one. And there's different kinds of fan brushes. Some of them have quite a flare out and quite a dome on the top of them, the way that they're manufactured. Some are more flat and narrower. There's all sorts of different ones that are out there, but we'll use this one for today, and I'll show you what on the other side here. And I'm just loading up again some of the same color. I use some of that Payne's gray with sap green, and basically the same thing. We just take and just bring down the trunk, and then again with the corner of the brush, just taking and hitting, tapping motion back and forth, and if you notice, this has got more of a delicate feel to it with the fan brush, with this particular fan brush I should say, and so I want it a little darker like I've got over there, so we'll take and pick up a little bit more paint, and you can see you can very quickly do the same thing that we did with the other brush with this one. And we'll go another little one that's right here on the edge. And maybe these are actually sitting right there. In fact, let's do that. We'll just leave them on that little stand of grass that's there on, and then we'll develop this foreground maybe a different direction than what we did. Rather than bringing trees all the way down, maybe we'll do some different type of a tree. In fact, let's do that. Let me grab my, well, where did it go? Let me grab my other brush here, and we'll just do a little bit more of a conifer type of a tree, so I'm just grabbing some of my green that's there, bringing in a little bit of the black, and I'm making this rather soupy. And if you've watched the show for very long, you know that I absolutely love doing trees. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take now, we'll say the tree starts there, it comes up, biggest thing too I've noticed when I'm doing lessons is that people have a tendency to try to make their trees all look perfect. And out in nature, there's very few trees that look perfect. That's the reason why people have a hard time when they go out looking for a Christmas tree. They are looking for the perfect Christmas tree, and unfortunately, they don't grow perfect in nature. And so there's always differences in how the limbs develop on them. They're trying to get light, and these trees that are back in the forest like this, it's all a struggle trying to get enough light to survive and to thrive. And it's no different than what our own lives are. A lot of times we struggle trying to survive, and we're always looking for a way to do that and make it easier on ourselves. No different with the tree. So as you can see here, I'm just using that little script brush and just doing some nice little indication of some leaves or some limbs that are coming off of that tree. And because it looks like we're doing kind of more of a spring or summer scene here, we'll take and put some limbs or some leaves on this little tree. That looks pretty good. It's a nice little base. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit more of my sap green, and then we're going to take and develop out now this foreground so that it looks like we've got maybe a nice little grassy area that's leading down into the stream. So I'm just going to grab my big 3-inch brush, and I'm just getting some of the sap green on one side and just a few little spots of the cad yellow on the other side of the brush. And I'm just going to start tapping here. And by tapping, I can take and put in nice, beautiful grassy area that's coming down to the water here. Even with this big brush, it's because I've got one side of the brush that has the sap green on it, the other side with the cad yellow, and I tap with the sap green side hitting first. And by doing that, it mixes it right on the canvas. And again, if you notice, I'm not killing all of that base color that we have there. That's what makes this painting work, is that ability to keep that there just as a base. And we can take and continue to tap this, and the more I would tap, the more it would become soft and subtle. I don't want it to be real soft. I don't mind it back here a little bit because it's a little farther back in the painting, but I don't want that up front here because this is going to be closer to where we're at with the painting, with the detail, and that's what we're wanting. So we'll do the same thing. Oops, I didn't grab any of my cad yellow on the one side, so I'll grab a little bit of that. Just a little bit too much cad yellow on there. And as you can see, again, I'm just tapping, bringing that right down to the water line. And that's looking pretty nice. We've got really quickly a nice little scene with some mountains there in the background, some trees in the foreground. And I want to take, before we go here, I want to take and just put in just a few, a little bit brighter right across here. and maybe a little bit right across here as well. You know, it's your painting. If you're doing the same one, you know, take and do it to your taste. And that's the fun part of this process is, you know, learning how to, what works for you and what looks good to you. And whether you're doing this for just for your own satisfaction and for your own pleasure, and that's really good for the soul, or if you're going to give them away to friends and family, or try to sell them as well. The biggest thing is just find what works for you, what makes you happy in your painting and in your creation. Every time you create something, you are giving a piece of yourself. You're expressing that outwardly. And so many times we in life don't express our feelings and our thoughts very well. So this is a way of expressing how you feel in a very tangible way. And I hope that you are painting, you are creating in your own life, whether it be, like I said, painting or some other form of creativity. I think it's important. I keep saying that all the time, but I cannot reiterate it enough. It's so important for your well-being, for your peace of mind, for the calmness of your spirit. I know that when I'm having a hard time or a hard day, I can sit down, put some music on, light a candle, maybe have a little glass of wine as I'm painting, and pretty soon the cares of the world dissipate and go away, and I find myself much more at peace and much more calm. So this week, I hope that you will find some time in your schedule. Make time. If you don't have time, make time to be creative, to find that time for yourself, and you will find that you will become a more calm person and more able to go out and face the world and the challenges that it might bring. So this week, be creative, be blessed, and I'll see you next time here on Art and Soul.